Here with me today to discuss tax form validation is David Jensen, tax transformation and technology partner in EY Financial Services Organization. Thanks for joining, David.
Hey, Ann, great to be with you today.
So I know you and I are well versed in the topic of tax form validation, but for somebody that is not a tax expert, could you share, what are we talking about? What does a tax form validation even mean?
No problem. Well, the area of tax form validation, at least to us, really reflects the process by which financial institutions or any payer of U.S. source income would collect and then review an IRS Form W-8 or W-9 or self-certifications collected for either FATCA or CRS.
David, you and I know that it's the bank's job or the wealth and asset management's responsibility to receive the form. We also know that the receipt of the form does not equal validation. Can you talk a little bit about what does validation mean?
Sure. Well, validation is really the process by which, upon receipt of that form is not only reviewed on its face to ensure that the form is valid based upon the claims that are made on the form itself, but that the form is valid against any information that may be within the account records of the financial institution. So it's not only ensuring that the form doesn't contain any inconsistencies with any information that is either in the system of record or on the form itself.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. So now as we go into the rest of my questions for you, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and they're going to be focused on now, next, and beyond. And I hope what they're going to do is help answer for our clients, what should they think about now? What challenges are clients seeing right now with respect to form validation services? What should they think about next? What are clients doing that aren't necessarily receiving significant business disruption? And finally, I'll ask you what clients should think about kind of beyond the next 6 to 12 months. So let's start with now, if that's okay. Just, it sounds like for form validation, that this crisis that we're all in could have caused even more significant challenges as it comes to dealing with form validation. Is that accurate? And if so, what challenges are clients experiencing?
There's been quite a bit of disruption, at least seen recently under this crisis. In a world moving increasingly electronic, form collection has maintained many remnants of the past. Hard copy forms are still surprisingly the norm, with standard mail often the means of delivery. And as you can imagine, COVID-19 has created disruption in the form validation process. So financial institutions have designated on their team as essential workers, requiring that they go into the office to collect and scan the documents that they've received in order to ensure that they can be processed internally.
Wow.
Significant challenges that financial institutions have been required to collect more forms than ever before. In recent years, tax authorities have sought to boost revenues by focusing on that gap between the revenues that they anticipated collecting and then the amounts that they've actually collected. And what this has resulted in is significant compliance headaches for financial institutions across the world whom are charged with collecting the appropriate tax documentation at the time that they are onboarding their customers. And as you can imagine, these forms are complex for any customer who has to complete it, especially for those customers who are completing a tax form that may not be within the language that they understand properly, and it may be in a legalese as well. So you're forcing customers to have to complete complex forms. What's going to be the end result? Well, it's really going to be invalid forms are going to be the commonplace. In fact, what we've seen is that approximately 30% of all IRS Forms W-8 that are received by financial institutions end up being incorrect. And this is not due to fraud, but it's actually due to customers' inability to understand the complexities of the tax forms and their instructions.
Wow, 30% is a really big number to have as invalid forms. And I know that if you're getting 30% invalid forms, well, then that's just more work on the financial institution because they have to go get a new form, right? And correct it, or they're going to withhold probably at the wrong percentage and have a bad customer experience with whoever did not complete the form accurately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And processing forms are extremely difficult. It had been in the past standard practice to have someone at the financial institution, someone whom ideally had experience with international transfers to manually review the paper Form W-8 submissions for compliance and then follow up regarding any discrepancies. But given the rapid increase in volumes and with financial institutions being really forced to do more with less, much of the work has been pushed down to lower level, high turnover staff are guided by nothing more than merely a checklist. And what this does is, as you had mentioned, Anna, it imposes large risk. Payers of U.S. income, they're now forced to have the liability for any amounts that they fail to withhold properly. And if a financial institution fails to withhold in connection with an invalid form, as you just said, the IRS will look to the financial institution to pay that liability. A non-U.S. person, the IRS doesn't have jurisdiction over them, so it really is the financial institution that will be subject to the liability if they fail to withhold properly on an invalid form.
Absolutely. And we've certainly seen the penalties that come along with that. So summing up the now question, which is, okay, so you're seeing the increase in compliance that's always been there, but it's been increasingly over the last, 12 to 24 months. And then in addition, maybe even longer than that with the increase of FATCA. And then in addition to that, which is that now compliance people are having to go into their physical office locations to open the mail and scan in documents. So I know that a couple clients are not having to go into the office to get these paper-based forms. Can we share with our clients what is the process that they've changed? What is the technology that they've implemented to get away from this manual process?
So what those clients that are not facing disruption today have been able to do is they've integrated a modern technology platform to not only collect electronic forms, but to ensure that the data that's being submitted at the time in which that form information is being provided electronically is in fact being validated, not only on its face to ensure that the data is in fact correct, but against any information within the books and records of that client. So imagine you as someone whom is a customer, you're opening up your account and you've provided all of your information with respect to onboarding. If you have to now recomplete a tax form, that imposes some level of risk that if you're providing that same information, there's a possibility that you may provide it incorrectly. What would it do to make it easier for you? Well, if you can pre-populate that form with the information that you had just provided when entering into your onboarding platform, well, now you've already got a leg up. That information is going to be one and the same with the information within your records. Is now ensuring that that information is appropriately mapped to the form, and then providing just those additional data points that are necessary, those that are not within the account onboarding platform, those additional data points just to be completed, and then provide your electronic signature, and then you're done. So it's about making the process as easy as possible on the customer, by providing them with real-time feedback, and having that system wrapped together and connected to your onboarding platform and system. So financial institutions that can do that have a significant leg up, and they haven't met much disruption at all.
That sounds like utopia. How do clients prepare if they wanted to talk about that utopia of having an automated process and technology so they weren't experiencing this significant client feedback that isn't positive around having to gather forms over and over again, and then also just having to go into the office and they wanted to do something? How long does it take to get to work into this automation, and what should clients start to think about from where to start?
First, they should look at what technology platforms are out there today, those that they can intertwine with their own systems and ensure that they've appropriately met the mapping requirements so that they can map the data within their systems to that other system. Because the rules, as you know, they're extremely complex, they're extremely burdensome. It would take years to develop internally, but if you're able to now map your data within your systems to that other system that is already performing the task and capable of providing that real-time feedback and ensuring that that form is going to be validated as the data is being submitted, well, then you've simplified your tasks. And what you've done is you've been able to rely on what it is that you do best, which is, if you're looking at an onboarding platform, connecting it to the appropriate systems to ensure a efficient and steady process for your customers.
Thanks, David. I think that's a lot. That's a lot for people to think about. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing what clients should think about for form validation for now, next, and beyond. I think what I heard was that right now it's really difficult for clients, especially where there's paper-based forms, and it's introducing unfortunately some hard times where people have to go into the office and scan in those forms right now, as well as the compliance burden that's just been increasing over time. And then what I heard for next to start to think about is there is hope. There are automated technologies that I know you've been working on for a long time. There's processes and procedures that can help with that technology to be implemented. And then beyond, which is thinking about, can it really integrate fully with your source system and record so you can go from the time a client like myself signs up for a particular investment or bank account all the way through to what you called straight through processing, such that the manual form never needs to be touched. It doesn't even need to really exist. That's what I heard from you today. So hopefully you'll be getting a lot more questions and calls about your technology after this. So thank you for sharing your insights on tax form validation, and thank you all for listening. We're going to take a closer look over the next few weeks at a few other customer tax and tax operations models for transforming tax now, next, and beyond. So stay connected with us on EY.com for future editions of this series, as well as all of our thought leadership. And for any questions, please contact your EY relationship partner, David or me.